I was asked by a multimedia company called I Ponder to do a story on farm artisans. That was my assignment. And luckily on this one, I happen to know a farm artisan. So I said, hey, I would like to do a story on my friend George McDonald. He makes shepherd's crooks. So I emailed George and I said, hey, would you be willing to be filmed? And he said, yeah, come on out.
Kids up, gone.
When I arrived, I chose to do the interview first. I don't always do that, but in this case, I wanted his interview to guide my filming. I have a new camera, so I was trying to decide, do I shoot YDR or RAW? I chose to shoot RAW.
I have to be inspired.
Honestly, I'm not completely happy with the way it was lit. There was a lot of natural light coming in. I think in retrospect, I would have done a little bit harsher lighting. You know, the shots I ended up taking during the piece were, ended up being a little bit more contrasty, and I wish I had reflected that in the interview, but you know what? That's okay, next time. Tell me your name and what you do.
Well, my name is George McDonald, and
When I'm doing pieces like this, I often like to start with asking the person, what is your name and what do you do? It's just something nice to fall back on. I'd like to have it.
And I grew up on this farm, not right here, the farm just up the hill.
I realized pretty quickly in my interview with George that he likes to go into detail.
Here in 1983, and
his stories are really interesting, and I loved talking to him and getting to know him more during this process. But I also realized that this is just a 2 to 3 minute story, and I needed to sort of edit his interview in my head as he's talking. Here's an example. I'm doing a story on crooks, and not everyone knows what a crook is, so I need George to explain what a crook is. So I ask him, just in a very simple form, what is a shepherd's crook?
What is a shepherd's crook? Well, it's a tall cane. They tend to be about 4 feet from the very top to the ground.
Now at this point, he's starting to get a little more detailed into exactly what a crook is. He's answering my question, right? But I'm always, when I'm shooting stories, editing sound bites in my head.
It's a kind of a standard size.
I'm probably not going to use this part. I know it's getting a little bit too detailed for my story. I need to keep it concise.
Size of a quarter.
I'm waiting.
Is the gap that you have in there, and they're just...
I'm thinking, no, I probably can't use that.
At their most simple, they're a tool that's used to catch and hold sheep.
Boom, now I have it. What is a shepherd's crook? He says at the beginning. Then a lot of times goes by where I'm thinking, I don't think I can use it. And then he says, at their most simple, they're a tool to catch and hold sheep. Done. So the interview lasts quite a while, and then I move on to B-roll. So tell me what you're going to do exactly. When I'm shooting someone doing something or a process of something, I always like to ask them, so tell me what you're going to do, so that I get an idea of my head. Okay, he's going to take it out of this wood thing, then he's going to take it over there and try to straighten it, and then he's going to set it over on the side. So at least in my head, I know kind of what the process is going to be. So I set up for my opening shot. Not super crazy about it. He kind of blocks the view, but I know I have 6 crooks to do. He's going to do 6 of them. So I'm going to try to get a different shot each time he takes a stick out.
That broke out.
I can't remember which lens I have on here. I think it's the 70 to 200, so I'm a little bit limited in the shots I can get it. They're going to be more compressed.
See, that one's done.
I'm not super crazy about this shot, only because I don't really like seeing the car in the background. But when he opens the box and the steam rises up, I really like that. So I decided not to move. Whenever something interesting is happening in my frame, I try not to focus or move or do something that will disrupt it, because inevitably I'm kicking myself when I get to the edit room.
And you just keep messing with them until they... But okay, there's that.
Before he takes the next stick out, I tell him I'm going to change my lens. I think I'm on a wider zoom lens, like a 16 to 35 now. Notice my tripod in the background. That was really stupid. Now I have to try to frame it out. I'm going to scan through this quickly, but you'll see that I'm getting some good face shots. Sometimes I forget to get those, and I get all these super wide and super tight shots, and then I realize I don't really have the person's face. And I think that's a really important image to have. He's going for the next stick, and I totally botch it. I go back and get a real wide shot. I think this is 16 millimeter maybe. I like the dogs in the foreground there. I think the shot's a little bit better on the inside, and I was able to frame the car out this time. Notice I have a wireless microphone on him as well. I always put that on first thing when I arrive at a location. Then I can step back, but there's still a sense of intimacy of what's happening in the frame. Just trying to get as many shots in the sequence as I can here of him straightening the sticks.
It won't straighten anymore. That's all we can do today with that. And now you have to heat them.
I get him doing a little bit of the heating. And then I decide, oh goodness, I haven't shot any slow-mo shots yet. So I decide to shoot a little bit of slow-mo. These days, when there's a certain action or something I think might look interesting in a slow-mo, I just go ahead and shoot it both ways. I don't know which I'm going to use, but I want to have the flexibility. I'm still trying to figure out when to shoot slow-mo and when not to. So if I'm not sure, I'll just try to shoot it both ways. And since this is a process, something he's doing repetitively, I have time to do both. Now I'm starting to see the dogs run around me and bark, and I think, ooh, I should really be on sound here. So I flip back.
Have to let that cool off where it is now, and then go on to the next bend.
That's a really cool little moment, and you know, it's a little shaky, but it's kind of a cute moment, but it didn't make it in the final piece.
And then what I'll do is I'll start heating it here.
Usually when I'm doing these pieces, I like to have people explain a little bit of what they're doing, but not talk to me the whole time. And I should have asked him more questions while he was in the process of working, but I didn't really this time, but this is one of the spots where I did.
The next thing I would do would be to start working on finishing the inside.
Now we're in the back of the shop. I have different sequences of him working.
It's going to be a little noisy for you.
I'm trying to get lots of tight shots. Also enough medium and wide shots that people see the setting of the new location. And of course I want to see his face again. More shots of George working. I asked him a few questions about his crooks.
Probably with a little band in here, but I don't know. I haven't decided yet for that.
And I wanted to duplicate many of those same shots in slow-mo. I like the movement, the sawdust in the air. Sometimes when I'm shooting slow-mo, it feels like poetry. During his interview, he said that his crooks were all little personal creations. And I think really that's the intention of the slow-mo here, to create more intimacy and for the audience to really get a sense of the passion he puts into his work. I'm pretty much done with him working in the shop now. I always try to get some rock shots, I call them. Just static shots that add texture or interest or tell me a little bit more about him or the setting. Sometimes I use them, sometimes I don't, but they're just nice to have.
Finished crooks. These are what they look like when they're done.
At this point I realized I'm doing a story on crooks and I haven't really shown anyone a crook per se.
Right here, this is a finished crook.
So I wanted George to show me some of them.
Mounted to twisted sassafras from Kentucky. This is a horse head, Scottish blackface with a silver band.
I also got some shots of them just on their own. I thought this would work better in slow-mo, so I shot it in slow-mo. Hold on, I'm gonna change this so I don't see it. Lately I've been tending to shoot video portraits of the people I do stories on. Again, sometimes I use them and sometimes I don't, but I really like to try to capture them if I can. At this point I'm gonna go outside the shop. I don't have any wide shots of the farm. There was a friend of theirs out in the field practicing sheep herding, so I shot a little bit of that. Again, just a few more shots that set the scene. Then Then George went to go get his dog, so I thought that would be a great opportunity to shoot a little bit of B-roll outside of the shop.
That's him. Let's go chase some sheep around, Sammy. What do you say, Sam?
Then I filmed George doing a little bit of sheep herding with his dog.
Away!
I'll scan through these shots pretty quickly. I probably spent 15 or 20 minutes with him. Again, just trying to get a lot of sequences. Sometimes when you're using different lenses, it's hard to get sequences because you're on the long lens, but then you need to get the wide angle. So usually I try to get a collection of shots on the long lens and then switch it out and then get a collection of shots on the wider lens. Sometimes something happens and I wish I had the other lens on, but that's the way it goes. If you're doing a story on crooks, you really need shots of crooks. After shooting quite a bit of footage of him sheep herding, I realized I hadn't really gotten any shots of his crook, which was what my story was about. I don't know what I was thinking, but he spent a little more time working, so I tried to get some shots of the crook during that time.
Steady, steady.
You know, I'm always thinking, what's my opening shot? What's my closing shot?
Lie down.
We're finishing up sheep herding now, and I know he has to walk back to the shop.
Sammy?
And then his dog takes a leak.
Well, why do you do that? Come on, Sam.
It was really funny, but I don't think I can use it in the piece. I'll have to find another closing shot. I really wanted more visuals for this piece. I have him in the shop, I have him out on the field, but I wanted something more. During the interview, George said that the sticks that he uses are from his property. So I asked him to show me.
See, these are hazelnut here.
This is a great opportunity to bring the piece outside.
This will make one. Now, I'll have to decide if I want to leave that kink in it or not.
So we must have walked around for 10 or 15 minutes looking for sticks and him cutting sticks, and I only used one shot, but that's okay. I want people to really experience and understand what goes into making these crooks.
The biggest part of the lens.
And I thought this was a great thing to add.
That's a girl.
I love this little moment of him interacting with his border collie. I didn't end up using this one because it didn't really fit into my story, but my goal is to try to capture as many of these as I can. Before I left, I wanted to make sure to get shots of the sheep, so I asked him to come down and show me where they were. And then I said goodbye. I knew he was going to walk down that path to his shop, and so I just tried, you know, as we were walking out, I had my tripod and I tried to get it set up so that I could get him walking away, thinking that maybe could be my closing shot. I'm not in a hurry, so I'm going to hold that shot as long as I can. Then he actually sat down outside his shop, and I just thought this was the sweetest moment. And I really tried to use it in the piece, but I just couldn't find a place for it. But I just thought it was sweet.